Hi, I'm Laurie Fisher. Welcome to On Arts. Thank you for joining us. Today we're going to explore the concept of inspiration. As art enthusiasts, you probably have a favorite painting or photograph that really inspires you. Have you ever wondered what inspires the artists that make the art that inspires you? As an artist myself, I'm always looking for sources of creative energy. Freud felt that you could find it in the subconscious. The artists of ancient Greece thought that it came from the muses. I like to find inspiration from the random and everyday, like things like squirrels and cardboard. We're going to talk with artist, writer, entrepreneur, Miss Nikki May, and she's going to tell us more about her work and what fuels her creative energy. So join us. Come on. Hi, we're here with Miss Nikki May, and we're having a fabulous conversation about her background, the work that she makes, and what inspires her. So we're having a little inspiration juice right now. Cheers.
Cheers.
So tell me, Nikki, where are you from?
Well, I originally from South Florida, but can you see me? I'm like not even facing at all. I'm originally from South Florida, but I spent most of my adult life in Atlanta. Moved to Paducah 7 years ago this month.
7 years ago. What brought you to Paducah?
Well, let me go back. I studied art in college and grad school, and
Where'd you study?
I went to University of Georgia for undergrad and studied drawing and painting, and Savannah College of Art and Design for grad school. Studied fiber arts, which I'm not doing anymore really at all. But and then I proceeded to get a job at IBM designing websites, which had absolutely nothing to do with what I wanted to do.
Wow.
And
what was that like working for IBM?
Well, it's a great company to work for, but, you know, I really had very little interest in sitting in a cubicle and...
So it was like the man?
Oh, yeah.
And
totally.
you're very artsy.
Well, actually, when I first started working for IBM, it wasn't. It was in 1997, and I was doing freelance graphic design and illustration, and I taught myself enough HTML to build my own website. And so I started listing HTML as a skill. And posted things online, and this was like the way beginning of the internet, 1997. So I started posting along with all of my design and illustration background that I could do HTML, and I got contacted by a contracting company for a 30-day temp job with IBM, and that lasted 10 years. So I started off doing HTML and then got into the design side of it, and ended up as a creative director, working on big projects like New York Times website and Sydney Olympics.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was a really cool job, great opportunity, lots of great experience.
But then you decided to come to Paducah.
But I wasn't making any art.
Yeah.
I mean, 10 years with IBM, and the only art I made were doodles in meetings. And I actually had a show here in Paducah of all my doodles from IBM.
Oh, cool.
But
you made and you're supposed to be working?
Well, when I was supposed to be in meetings, and classes, and in my business writing class, I mostly just drew.
In the margins.
Yeah. But anyway, so I was living in Atlanta and sitting in a cubicle and sitting in traffic, and decided that I didn't want to be doing that anymore. It wasn't what I was supposed to be doing. I needed to make art. So I decided I wanted to leave, and couldn't really afford to live in Atlanta without that kind of salary.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was looking for someplace to move that was a smaller town that was a lot more affordable, but still had something going on with the arts. So I Googled small town art, and I found an article that was written about Paducah and the Artist Relocation Program in Art Calendar magazine that was called Small Town Big on Arts. And so I researched a bunch of other places, but I decided to come here for a weekend and check it out. And that was in March of 2003. And I stayed with Frida Fairchild. And I asked her when I could come, where there was something going on, to meet a lot of the artists. And she said, well, nothing's planned, but we'll just throw a party for you. So the night I got into town, they had a potluck, and all the artists that were already here came. And so I met a bunch of people, and the next day I put an offer on a house.
Wow. And then your life changed.
Not this house. I had one in Lower Town. But then I went back to Atlanta, tied things up, and moved here in November of 2003. but I still actually kept working for IBM for another 4 years. I just did it remotely. And in that time, got back into making art for the first time in a really long time. And also started, before I quit IBM, started Eyeless Paducah with Mary Thorsby. And as a little side project, an idea she had. And eventually got to the point where I could quit my job, do iList and a few other freelance projects, and get back to making art.
Yeah. So when did Eyeless Paducah really take off?
Well, we launched Quilt Week like 3.5 years ago. It started off really small. The basic idea was Mary moved here from San Francisco, where she planned a lot of fundraisers and organized a lot of events, and she was trying to do the same thing here and couldn't find one central calendar where everything in town was listed so she could know when was a good time to plan an event. So she had to go to the Chamber of Commerce and to the hospitals individually and to the, and so she had this idea, and we had met just through the neighborhood, didn't know each other very well, but she knew what I did, and came to me and said, I have this crazy idea for making a community calendar. What do you think? I have no idea if it'll take off or anything, but so we started, and 3.5 years ago, and now it's kind of what the city relies on to know what's going on around town.
So if there's someone that didn't know, someone in this town that has never heard of Eyeless Paducah, what would you tell them?
Well, it's a community website. The basis of it is it's a calendar of events, everything that's going on around town, from fundraisers, parties, sports events, church events, classes, just anything, live music.
And the fun stuff too, iPet,
Well, yeah, and then so in addition to the calendar, there's also feature stories about, the first one that we started was I Love It, and it was just to introduce the community to something they might not know about, a person or a business or an event. And we started I Date of the Week, and the tagline is, we know you single folks are busy. Eyeless goes out on the first date so you don't have to. And we introduce a single person to the world.
Absolutely. You know what's interesting? This just popped in my head, and you said earlier about, you mentioned something earlier about how you like these black ink drawings on a white surface, and when you see a white surface, you want to cover it. What did you say exactly?
I've been doing the black and white ink drawings for years, decades, and I don't know, every time I see something white, I just want to draw all over it. Like, I want to draw on the trim around my windows, and you've seen my car.
So is that your language? Is that like your form of writing, is your ink drawings on white paper?
I guess so. I never really thought about it, but it is kind of like writing.
Yeah.
Like, I guess the way people write in journals, I draw. People think that kids doodling in class means they're not paying attention, but some people, if you're, I guess, a visual thinker that way, you kind of can focus your listening better if you're actually drawing or doodling. And so I guess in a way it kind of has become my language.
Speaking of art, could you tell us more about that aspect of your work?
Okay.
The fine arts aspect.
Okay. Well, I do a lot of different things. My undergraduate degree is in drawing and painting, and I concentrate. Well, you can actually see some of my paintings in here, and these are ones I did in grad school.
So you were in the fabric program at SCAD.
Well, yeah. Actually, I started off in the painting department, and I thought I wanted to get a master's in painting, and I found out that they hated everything I was doing. I was doing these paintings, and I was just getting crucified in critiques because everybody else in the painting department was not painting. They were somebody was making sculptures out of that foam insulation material that you can buy at the hardware store.
Somebody did that. Huh?
I totally did that.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, everybody was making stuff out of trash, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but I was the only one in that group that was actually painting pretty paintings. And they just thought, well, God, if it's pretty and decorative, it can't really have any meaning behind it. So I just was getting I was having horrible critiques. And at one of my reviews, somebody from the fiber department came to my review and said, "You're just totally in the wrong department. You need to come see what we're doing." And so I hadn't done anything with fabric before, but she looked at these paintings and they look like fabric.
Mm-hmm. They do.
And they're not. They're it's watered down acrylic on unprimed canvas. But
it looks like silk almost, like when people would color silk.
Mm-hmm. And it's kind of painted that way. It's lots of layers. It's almost painted the way a watercolor is, with layers and let it dry and more layers on top. But so somebody from the fiber department came to one of my reviews, saw these, and just said, "Why don't you come check out what we're doing?" So I did, and I sat in on a couple classes and looked at what the students were doing there, and I changed my major to fibers, which, you know, made me lose a year in grad school.
Yeah, everybody needs an extra year.
Yeah. But then it was like the whole world opened up to me, because, you know, in that medium, they understand that you can be, that it can be pretty and decorative and still have some depth behind it, still have some meaning. I kind of developed my own visual language by doing that. So when I went from these paintings to some big pieces of fabric that I can pull out later when we go into the studio. And that's where I started doing what's kind of my trademark, which is nude female figures and leaves and plants.
What inspires you to make these things?
I collect things. I collect a lot of different things, and I don't always know why. I'm just drawn to certain kinds of objects. My coffee table here, for example, it's a printer's drawer with like old letterpress letters in it. It's just something I'm drawn to, and it hasn't really worked its way into my work yet, but like everything that I collect eventually works its way in. I also collect old cameras. I have a whole bunch of them over here. I don't know, covered with dust. Some of them work. I've used some of them. That's not an old one, but it's a cool one. It's a Lomo. It takes like 4 shots at once. Like click, click.
Does
click,
it
click.
work?
Yeah, but that doesn't have any film in it right now. But I've used bones. I collect bones. I collect insects. People know that if they find something dead, they should pick it up and bring it to Nikki.
That's what I heard.
I don't know, a lot of my work is about, I kind of feel like, you know, they say everything an artist does in some way is a self-portrait. And I think it is not necessarily very literally, you know, I mean, I'm not really drawing myself, but the female figure does represent me and my relationship to the world.
Yeah.
And I think that the decorative, the lines, like they're kind of Art Deco, Art Nouveau kind of lines, and the pattern and decoration. A lot of what I'm talking about in my work is how things appear to other people, and this ties back to my experience in grad school with them thinking that the pretty surface couldn't have any depth behind it. And so I'm just trying to show how the surface of things isn't necessarily the truth about it. So it's like leaves and foliage kind of like as a veil hiding what's true behind it, and pretty surface decoration not always being the truth about something. And you know, a lot of my work is an overall pattern. You look at it at first and you just see pretty decoration, but the longer you look, you can pick other things out of it that you might not see at first if you didn't take the time to look past the surface. And so it's kind of how I feel about myself, how I feel about the image that we project to the world, the mask we wear that we show people. And it's kind of about, okay, see the surface, that's one truth, but look further and see more behind it.
Wow, it's an interesting concept.
So that's kind of what it's all about.
That's a concept we can all relate to.
Yeah, I think so. I think
as
so.
human beings.
And you know, I don't think it's very blatant in the work, and it's not like I set out to go, here's what I'm trying to say, and now I'm going to say it. you know, like when you were talking about your work, you're often telling a literal story.
So illustrative.
Yes. And so that's one way of working. You have your story that you're illustrating, and I kind of do it the other way. I make the image and then figure out what it's about.
Yeah, so the viewer makes the
Right.
story.
Yeah, exactly.
So there must be many things that inspire these stories and help you write or come up with in your head.
Well,
do you want to show us some things in your studio?
Go into the studio
Yeah.
and look at some of the things that I can't really explain the direct inspiration, but
Okay.
they're things that I'm drawn to collect, and they work their way into it somehow. So
Let's do it.
Let's
sing
take a look.
stuff. Wow, you have a really cool studio, Nikki. It's so full of like not only your work, but things that inspire you too.
I have a lot of weird stuff. Yes.
Tell us more. First, show us some work that you make, and then can you tell us how it relates to these wonderful, wacky collections?
I can try.
have.
There's two main bodies of work that I do. What I really want to spend more time doing is like these pieces here are encaustic, and I think a lot of people don't know what encaustic is. So briefly, I'll just say it is a painting medium that is beeswax mostly with pigment in it or without, and a little bit of Damar resin to harden it and raise the melting temperature. But like oil paint is oils with pigment mixed in, and watercolor mixed with water, and encaustic is wax mixed with pigment. So you don't paint with it out of a tube the way you do with other kinds of paint. You melt it and paint with it when it's molten, and then let it cool, and it solidifies, and you fuse layers together. And you can what I really like about it is you can paint with it, you can draw, you can collage with it, you can do so many different things with it. So so that's one body of work that I do, but unfortunately this one is very time consuming, and these days I don't find huge blocks of time to work in the studio. I'm busy running iList and doing other freelance projects. So what I've been doing more of recently is drawing, and I've got a bunch of my drawings out here too. So I thought I'd just show some drawings.
Yeah, please do. I see lots of leaves and female figures.
Yeah.
The language of Nikki.
Yes, Nikki's language, leaves, and female figures.
Cool.
And
what inspires this eroticism in your work?
that's a very good question. I've always just drawn the female form, and I just find it beautiful and sensual, and it's always been sort of just in generic poses, and a lot of the poses that I draw are kind of just
Check this one out.
just kind of women kind of holding on to themselves, just
So
sort
to
of in.
speak.
No, I mean like this one in a protective pose. Kind of some of them are in a sort of fetal position, and I just have been looking more and more at other art and have been drawn to erotic art.
So
So some of these are getting a little more risque, and a little more.
So what erotic artists are you drawn to the most?
I don't really have any specific artists that I just love that much, but I have this great book that I picked up when I was in Toronto over the summer. That's all like really just contemporary. It's more graphic design and illustration and sort of bizarrely erotic, and it's got that Art Nouveau kind of feel, the same kind of line quality that I'm drawn to, and I don't just go, okay, one day I'm going to draw bodies just lying there, and one day I'm going to draw bodies touching themselves.
Yeah.
It just kind of happens. Anyway, so what I've been doing recently, since I don't have as much time to spend in my studio as I like, is I'll keep sketchbooks and paper next to my computer. So while I'm working, I'll be drawing, or I take it with me everywhere I go. And
The sketchbooks are really cool.
So
I like
these
how
are-
it's accordion
I
style.
love these they're moleskin accordion fold sketchbooks, and I just can fill it. So these are what I carry around with me and just draw in all the time. You kind of can't see me without one of these Pilot G2 pens, which I love so much that Pilot should give me a huge case of them. But yeah, so I draw, and I do the encaustic, and I also do some photography. And this is a piece that has my photography and it's encaustic, and it's a much more literal version of what some of my drawings are, with the female form in the plant material. So this is a friend of mine who loves to pose whenever she comes to town, and we go to all kinds of cool places. Like this was in a abandoned, falling down house out near the airport, and we took photos, and I layered them with pictures that I took of trees, and it's dipped in wax and layered together.
She was nude in the abandoned house by the airport.
Yeah.
Sounds safe.
Yep.
Okay.
And
That's a very interesting contrast between, what's handmade and then something that's photographed.
yeah. And then this piece in here is a good example of how some of my collections work their way into my work, because like you can see here I have
Show us your collections.
Collections of all kinds of weird things, like butterflies,
birds' eggs,
things I found.
Oh, here's a dead baby mouse in a Ziploc
dead
bag.
baby mouse in a Ziploc bag.
I'm inspired.
A bird skeleton.
Ooh, that's very
Careful,
cool.
it's very delicate.
Where did you come across this?
I actually
this
bought it on
fella?
eBay.
And there's a market for this.
Apparently, I bought it, but you can see in this piece, in some of the stripes, there are actual butterfly wings in it, and then in the texture in there is actually rodent bones.
Oh, cool. So these objects physically show up.
In
your work.
Sometimes they work their way in, and I don't exactly know how it's going to happen, but you're talking about how my collections work their way into my work, and I have these little box displays. They're printer stores, just like my coffee table is, with little objects in them and little doll parts in them, and they work their way into my drawings. These are from my sketchbook.
So
you can see when I hold it up next to the box what the inspiration is.
So I've had a great time here. Thank you so much for letting us into your studio and tell us about your work. If we want to see more, where can we go look?
You can see my website at nikkimay.com, and you can also find me on Facebook. I'm on there all the time. And you can find more information about Ilis Paducah at ilispaducah.com. And thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you. I've had a great time. You've been a big inspiration to me, and I hope she's been inspiration to you watching at home. Thank you for joining us today on Eye on Arts. I'm Laurie Fisher. See you next time.